Good evening. Hopefully you can hear me all right. I hope everything's all good. Another evening of streamy goodness. I don't even remember what I called this. Oh yes, 2 weeks to IAE and other copium. Yeah, so give me a shout out in chat if you're here. Let me know who's around. Yeah, we're going to have a look at what we might expect in IAE, especially in the light of what they've told us with ships that are coming and how many they're expecting to get done by the end of the year. Hey, Notorious, good to see you, buddy. Yeah, we'll see where we get on. Obviously, as is customary at the beginning of the stream, slumming it with Strongbow. I completely forgot to head to the shops today and pick up any sort of decent alcohol. So, it'll be this. Obviously not sponsored and don't intend to be either. Yes, Richard, hello. Yes, I'm not on mute. Woohoo! Hey, that's a step up, right? Good evening, Jadomu. And Stakara Gord. I'm guessing that's the way I pronounce that. But good evening, buddy. Hope you're well. I'll just figure out what's clattering around. Yeah. Citizen Ninja. Good evening. Hope you're well. Yeah, so we're going to have a look at a few things this evening, things that are up and coming, things that we're expecting to see for IE, because they've kind of given us an idea of how many ships we've got left to expect. We're going to watch that clip back, and then, if you fancy, we could do a little bit of detective work and figure out just exactly what might be coming, hopes, dreams, all that sort of stuff. Good evening, Lucrative. Hope you're well. Lucrative says, new alien ship looks very interesting if it is medium in size. Yeah, I haven't had a look at too much of leaks stuff, but that's kind of par for the course for me. But we'll have a look. What I have seen is the leak that has the Gattac Raylan in it, or something that appears to be very similar to that, and a graffitied IE board that says, don't buy alien. So possibly hinting at some sort of event maybe that goes along with IAE in terms of in-game missions, someone that's coming to crash it or whatever. Stunner, good evening, buddy. Hope you're well. But yes, we shall have a look in just a short moment at what is good, what is going on. I just need to muck around, so I've got a brand new screen now. I got a much bigger screen, and what I need to do is just make sure that I've got the right screen set up and don't give you just an eye view of yeah, the wrong screen, shall we say. There we go. Just changing those over now. Pro stream this is me prepared, obviously. Spent a lot of time setting up for this and stuff, but yeah, hopefully now that's it copied across. New screen, huzzah, says Richard. Jess Barnes, good evening. Good to see you, bud. Ray Louderback, happy to be on board. Happy to have you, my friend. Lots of new names, which is really, really cool. So for those that haven't been here before, welcome. Good to see you. Chat, I interact as much as I can. That's basically the point of these streams, is that if you want one-way bash transmissions, that's what the videos are for. This is much more kind of a back and forth and stuff. There's kind of just one rule, really, which is just be respectful of everyone else. Disagreement is absolutely fine. Personal attacks aren't. So that's it. Other than that, more than welcome to be in. We don't all have to agree. And the way I kind of approach my channel is that I'm not about white knighting, I'm not about salt farming, I'm somewhere in between. There's stuff that I think I will defend CIG on, there's stuff that I will not defend CIG on. And I try to give you as balanced a view from my point of view as I can do. Also, if you've not been here before, I'm an ex-Royal Navy officer. I left the Navy back in 2013. So some of my videos have a military spin on it. You'll see a part of a video series called Starships and Warships in the channel. So go check that out, have a look, see what you think. But for the moment, we're just going to settle back, have a chill Sunday evening with a few drinks, and just sit and chat. And that's the standard thing. We've done lots of the gaming problems. What I haven't been doing so much on my channel up until CitizenCon was the drinking part of it. We fixed that at CitizenCon with the drinking game. Yeah, that was, I put soon in there. Tells you how that went. I also put every time someone used a beam. Because I'm stupid. But yes, so some cool stuff to have a look at. What we'll do is we'll just give it a couple of moments, just make sure we give everyone a chance to kind of settle down, grab themselves a drink, and then we'll go and have a look at the talking ship presentation from CitizenCon. There's a specific section I want to look at with how many ships they had coming for the rest of the year from CitizenCon, and then from there kind of figure out what we think might be coming, how many ships IAE might have for us. No more beams, says Jodomo. I was saying that quite a bit on the stream, like, please God, no more beams. And then, of course, they went and used loads of beams. So yeah, it hurt a lot. Yeah, other than that, let's head across and see just what they have for us on the topic of ships and how many we have left this year.
We talked about the present. Let's talk about the future. So here is a big block of squares that represents our backlog. So each one of these squares is a ship or a vehicle. All the light blue ones are all the ones we have released to date. All those grey ones are the ones that we have not done yet. The dark blue ones are the ones that will be in your hands by the end of the year. So we have over 200 vehicles for us to support as a vehicle content team.
So I just want to go back on that.
For those of you that are trying to do, each one of these squares is a ship or a vehicle. All the light blue ones are all the ones we have released to date. All those grey ones are the ones that we have not done yet. The dark blue ones are the ones that will be in your hands by the end of the year.
Okay, so everything that has been released up to and including CitizenCon is that stack there. We can safely assume, because it happened before CitizenCon, that includes the F8 Lightning. Okay, so we have 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 more ships to come this year. Yeah. So, I'm just going to skip through a couple of these bits. Ships and vehicles. The Crusader A1 was out by that point, so we know that's not it. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4 ships to go. 5, 6, 7, 8. So yeah. So, and the new cutter, you're right. So that's 7. The cutter was out, wasn't it? Or see, it's an interesting one because they said it was in. So yes, you would expect that not to count, right? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a lot to come by the end of the year. I mean, that's... So you're right, Richard, but this indicates to me new in 2023. So that, I don't think that leaves any room for that bit, right? So he's not talking about this 12-month period. He's definitely talking about by the end of the calendar year. Interesting. Sijin Ninja says, I think the new 2023 for the backlog are the A1, the C1, the F8, the Hull C, Lynx, SRV, Santoki I, Storm, Vulture, X1, X1 Force, X1 Velocity. That does take us to 12. However, hey Shinobi, good to see you, buddy. Good to see you, March. I think you're right in that there are 12 there. However, just to go back to the beginning of this, what he did say was...
We talked about the present. Let's talk about the future. So here is a big block of squares that represents our backlog. So each one of these squares is a ship or a vehicle. All the light blue ones are all the ones we have released to date. All
the light blue ones are the ones we've released to date. To date includes, because by this stage, the Cutter, the Scout variant, the F8 Lightning, the Hull C, the Vulture, the A1, they were all in the game at this point. They were all there, ready to go, right? Possible argument about the Cutter, but everything else was in game. We were in the Lightning before Citizen Con. We were in the Hull C before Citizen Con. We were in the A1 before Citizen Con. So yeah, interesting, but I think there's a few more to go. Okay, so but we'll work from your list. That's really good work. We'll use that as our baseline, right? Skarsgård said, I thought JC clarified that it was 12 in total for the year. I don't know, did he? If you could find us that, Stakara God, that would be awesome, man. Myart says, I've not gone back and watched the sitcom recording, but seen quite a few people currently saying 12 ships by the end of the year, placed on the big backlog square diagram. Yeah, this thing, right? It's that. So what he said there was clear. This was everything they've released up until now. That wasn't. If there is a link, however, then by all means pop it in and I'll have a look. Gasak ship says limited respawns. That is true. The Gasak Raylan, the medium, I think it's medium cargo ship, might be a large. But yeah, I think it's medium. Mara says there isn't 12 coming by the end of the year. Ships being introduced this year, i.e. since Jan. Interesting. Okay. So, does that list then? So let's go back to the roadmap, and let's see. This is the bit that's really weird, right? Is that because I don't think that even that is accurate, because I think what we're going to see is that they've released a few more than that. But yeah, okay. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. So it can't be that, because they'll have done 17 this year. So it's not 12. It's not that. Where do we think we're seeing this? Is this on John Crew's Twitter feed? Is that where that's coming from? Let me have a look. That's not what I wanted. So I'm just having a look on another screen. I do apologise, but I do have to hide some of the screen magic. Now that we are on 2 screens, you don't have to see all the stuff that I do behind the scenes, which is quite exciting, right? Let's have a look. Yeah, Richie Baines. I think you're right. To me, it felt clearer as well, and that's nothing against what anyone else has said in chat. That is 100% about what they've said about the about CitizenCon. But let's have a look. He hasn't released a straight up, unless it's a response to anything else. Yeah. I can't kind of see anything on his feed, just very quickly, that says that. So, yeah. Maybe new in 2023 includes new to the backlog, like 3 news variants. So, here's going back to this, okay, because otherwise we are going to go around the houses on this one. Okay, this is the presentation from CitizenCon. Okay, to clear things up, this is what they've said. Okay, for those that are joining us late.
We talked about the present. Let's talk about the future. So here is a big block of squares that represents our backlog. So each one of these squares is a ship or a vehicle. All the light blue ones are all the ones we have released to date.
All the light blue ones are the ones we have released to date. That top section.
All those grey ones are the ones that we have not done yet.
Grey ones outstanding.
The dark blue ones are the ones that will be in your hands by the end of the year.
The dark blue ones are the ones that will be in your hands by the end of the year. Okay, so this isn't you know, oh, we'll have concepts, this is flyable, this is in people's hands. So from that, what we can then see, if we go to the roadmap, okay, let's close down what came before, let's see what we have outstanding, shall we? Okay, so, released Spirit, not that thing. Released Drake Cutter, not that thing. Okay, so we have the C1, the Storm, and the SRV yet to go. So there's 3. We then have, by the end of the year, 4, 5, 6, 7. That would indicate that there are still 5 ships outstanding. For me, that seems still quite high, right? However, you've got those 2 as well. A1 and Drake Cutter Scout. Okay. So, Myarch, not new from the end of CitizenCon. You are right, except that they have said that that was released to date, i.e. the day that he was talking. Right. Also, if you want to say ships are new in 2023, there's 17 of them. There's 12 on that diagram, so that doesn't match up either. Yeah? So, unfortunately, that's not the case. And this is it, you know, the question is, are we talking variants? Are we not talking variants? Are we talking ships and vehicles? Or are we just talking ships? It's a little bit out there, right? So, yeah. Okay, so the G12 is complete. It says limited respawns. Yeah, or they have unannounced ships in the backlog too, possibly. Yeah. Can I see the link you put up in the chat? I can't, my Arch. Are you in the Discord, my friend? If you are, I can pop that in. Let's see. I can see the last 5 being the Ursa variant, the Sandtok, the straight-to-flyable Alien, and the X1 Storm. Possibly. Yeah. It's an interesting one, because I genuinely don't know where he's gone with that. But that whole... Hang on. Allow me to... Let's see, can I... I can't, unfortunately. Myach, can you go to the community tab, see if you can pop it on as a comment on one of the community posts? Do the most recent one, and we'll see if it works, and I'll see if I can bring it up there. But that would be really useful. Thanks, buddy. Maybe a Storm variant as well. Possibly CIG are artists, not matching musicians, says Stunner. there's certainly something they go there. Matthew says, I'm still wondering if they'll announce the RSI miner. I mean, it's kind of been announced, right? You mean to sell? Yeah, possibly. I really hope the next flyable alien ship has an interior beyond the cockpit, says Citizen Ninja. Yeah. Let's have a look. I reckon one of the ships is going to be the missing Zeus ships. Possibly. Although it'd be an interesting decision to not sell it, right? You know, it's kind of interesting. We accuse CIG a lot of price gouging and all that sort of stuff and doing stuff for sale. Be interesting not to sell one. Unless, I suppose, they brought them forward and maybe there's something about this that's going to make it more desirable over the other Zeus. It would be a ball bag move. But let's face it, it's not the most surprising thing to ever have happened, is it? So, yeah. RSO Miner is the Arasta, says Limited Response. Possibly. Racing Spirit. Yeah, so, possibly. We'll have a look. I'm just going to go and have a look at my community tab and see if stuff is there already. Let's have a look. Mike, if you're having a problem with that, buddy, I can pop a link to the Discord in the chat, and you can see that if that helps. So, March, this is it, buddy. Join through that, and then I shall pop it up for everyone to see, alright? Let's have a look. Yeah, we'll get there in the end. This is kind of the problem, is that they say these things and then they have to clarify it later, right? Well, I suppose it's nothing that we haven't seen before, but it's not ideal. But let's see. Let me know when you're in, my friend, and I shall give you the role to do what you need to do. Conspiracy theory. They held back the last Zeus variant, says Richard, so they could use it to get more money at IAE, spread it out so people wouldn't have as big an inhibition to spend. Yeah, possibly. It's interesting that there is very clearly, because there's a structural difference as well. I think the wings actually come back in. None of the other Zeuses do that. So we know there's another Zeus out there. But we'll have a look. Yeah, so it kind of depends. So even if you say that what they've released on the day or at CitizenCon that they told us was in the game, let's have a look then. So let's say they weren't including these patches. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9. And that to me seems a little bit more reasonable. There's 3 more by the end of the year. On top of that, the alien ship and maybe 2 others. But the interesting thing is that this isn't obviously including released. So it could be the Gatak Raylan that's coming in. I don't know. I really don't know. But I think 3 flyable ships by the end of the year, over and above what's already coming, which is the X1 variants, the Santok EI, the C1 Storm SRV. That to me feels a little bit more realistic. But what do you think? I'm not sure. I think that's quite a. The Zeus is different. The Zeus ST is different to the rest of its line, much like the Saber Raven. Yeah, there are definite structural differences. I'll see if I can pull that image up so we can have a look. It brought up a takeaway for some reason. That's not helpful. So let's have a look. So that's the MR. That's the ST, right? Okay, unfortunately this is from Reddit, but it does the job. Okay, so what you'll notice is the wings are different. They come back in. Okay, it's called the Zeus status, Mark II ST, not sold yet. So this is what people are confused about. Yeah. And it's very similar image to the ES. Yeah. Sock, we're not talking about, sorry, there's a lot to talk about this Gatak ship. The images of the Seolan look like the Raelian. Yeah, I saw it and I saw Raelian, mainly because it's got Gatak down the side. But we'll have a look in a second. The Sitcon Alien ship shadow doesn't look anything like the Raelian. Agreed. They say it's a 3-story starter ship. Yeah, that's no good. That took you to Daily News. Posted link and info on his general marks. Yeah, I do apologise about that, mate. I'm not sure what's doing that. But let's have a look. Info on his general. Hopefully I can get there before Lemming yeets it. Okay. Okay, so I've not gone back and watched the sitcom recording, but seeing quite a few people quote me as saying 12 ships by the end of the year based on the big backlog square diagram. There isn't 12 more coming by the end of the year. It was ships being introduced this year. Right. Which does... Oh, so he actually gives an answer. So they say how many have been introduced this year, but from what I can remember, it's the Storm, Zeus times 3, Cutter, Scout, Mirai, which means 5 to the end of the year, or did I miss some? John Crew has said Scorpius Antares, Storm, Fury and MX and LX, Zeus times 3, Cutter, Scout. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. See, that doesn't make sense, because if you go back through all this lot, let's look at 2023. Let's look at the ships they've released. 1, 2, let's leave the vehicles out. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and we haven't even done for the rest of the year, right? So that means we've got 13, 14, 15, 16 for the rest of the year. But there are only 12 on the diagram. So none of this making sense. Right, so we can't use that. It's unsurprisingly utter bollocks again from CIG. Oh well. I mean, that's it then. Okay, so, very quickly, I see Matthew's comments. He says they really need to do something with the Antares. Put a pin in that. From there, what do you think we will get at IAE? Let me know. Because whichever way you read it, none of this makes sense. If it's 12 by the end of the year, I mean, maybe he's not counting variants, but then he's listing them in the thing, and I don't know. 3.21 releases are still in progress, except we have the Scout and we have the Lightning and we have the... sorry, the Lightning was 320, but we have the A1 and we have the Scout. So, yeah. Bengal could be completed. Yeah. I mean, even so, it's not going to be given to us, right? But I very much doubt it will be at this point. 3.21 releases are still in progress. And empty your wallet, says Matthew. Yeah. SRV and C1 aren't in game yet. No, they're not. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So 2 more by the end of the year if we're taking out. Except if we do that, then we say, okay, they're going to be 2 more by the end of the year, but there aren't. There are going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So no matter which way you peg it, even if you leave the ground vehicles out here, even if you leave the X1s out, that's 14, and there's only 12 dots on their diagram. So CRG really not doing a good job of communicating any of this. That comes as a shock to, I'm guessing, no one. Yeah. Sock says, do you think they're going to delay the Santoki I-30? I hope not. I think people have waited long enough for it. And the last that I remember was that cockpit that they since showed off at CitizenCon, I think, or maybe even a little bit before. But, you know, the cockpit for it was the last blocker in terms of art and that sort of stuff. It's the remaining implementation now into the game. But I think, yeah. Yeah, possibly lucrative, although from his Twitter, which I'm looking at on my other screen, he mentions variants. So he lists them specifically in regard to that post. So I honestly don't know what they're getting at, but it's not, you know... unfortunately, it's nothing that I can answer here. We're just guessing from this point onwards, which is no help to you or me or anyone else for that matter. So let's just pop some stuff in the background. Some background noise while I slurp up some more drink. Oh, lucrative. No, it's all good, man. This is, this, unfortunately, is the confusion that CIG kind of weaves when they release anything like this. You know, I wouldn't mind betting maybe he's not counting unannounced ships. No, so he's counting the stuff we're getting into our hands, so why anyone mentions the Zeus is really weird. Unless they're planning to get that straight to flyable by the end of the year, but that would be just strange. Limited Respawn says maybe a boat release. Yeah, maybe a bit easy for that one. Early for that one, rather. The medical vehicle, I think you're onto something. I wouldn't mind betting that something like the Lynx gets a medical variant. I think that's possible. That would be a nice like closure to the gameplay loop. So you've got the Lynx, the Pisces, the Cuddy Red. You've got the Galaxy, the Apollo, the Endeavour, and that seems to be a lot of, you know, as dedicated medical ships or major medical ships. In the case of the Endeavour, I know it's not dedicated unless you just put that pod on it. But yeah. So I think that's it. And then you've got some benefits there. You've got a ground vehicle that can access places like caves and that the ships can't. And I'm really hoping with the shuttles, what they do in the future is they make them able to access areas that other ships can't. So maybe shuttles are able to access smaller landing pads deeper into cities. Because landing shuttles is manageable. You know, landing reclaimers, less so in the middle of a city, right? But then hopefully you get some ships, like the whole idea of the Hawk is that it folds up as a bounty hunting ship to be able to access really inaccessible places. So maybe, I realize it's not a shuttle, but you could have that sort of designation and maybe it gets clearance or whatever. But yeah. Stakaragord, mate, I really hope I'm saying that correctly. I might be butchering that, but I'll give that a go. So many RSI to be released next year, exciting. there may be one release in particular that I've been looking at. Yeah, so the boat is completed in terms of the single player. That doesn't necessarily equate to the multiplayer. The spider was in the trailer. Again, CIG, I think, a number of times have said they have no plans to give us to that. Sorry, that to us. That doesn't mean we're not going to get it in the future. This was the difference with the F8. They had no plans. People read that as a promise. You know who you are, sorry, Mike. But yeah, they had no plans. They repeatedly had no plans. And then, you know, they did. The X1 will make an insane medical ground vehicle. It's got a long tail and it's slim enough to fly into bunkers. Yeah, I don't think they're going to get that far with it. It needs to be big enough to carry stuff. It's got to be able to handle. You know, we might need to be able to lift people up and actually, like, firemen's carry them and stuff. I don't know if they're going to allow that with something as small as the X1. I think the smallest thing we'll have shifting casualties around will be the drones from the Apollo. Terrapin Medical from last year's IAE, said Jadomo. Interesting call. What, as a release for this one, or as a concept for this one? What are your thoughts? That'd be an interesting move from them. Yeah, so we've got stuff that is feature complete, and unfortunately, I had quite a long debate with in the comments of one of the videos with a certain individual who seems to think that because things are all in one engine, that makes them the same thing. I'd just like to point out that Hell Let Loose, a first-person shooter that's quite realistic looking, set in World War II, and Fortnite are based on the same engine. So yeah, and that's enough said about that. Limited Respawn says it was a reward for finishing Squadron 42, which is flawed. It is still a reward for finishing Squadron 42, which is going to save some of us $300 in getting it. I didn't buy it. I'm going to run it in game. It was in the background on the CAR video. Yes, I remember someone pointing something like that. So do you think they're going to release it? Do you think that's going to be one of the things that never comes to Flyable? What do you reckon? But yeah, I think medical links, Terrapin medical, because the Terrapin's anvil, right? So maybe the medical or the medical links variant or rover variant, whatever that is, comes next year with the ISI, or do you think we'll get it this year? Whatever we're looking at the moment, let's go and have a scroll through. Yeah. So the progress tracker's got the Scout and the Mark II being implemented. Again, of course, their progress dates don't mean that that's when they're going to be released. We know this. I'm just going to swap myself over 2 seconds. There we go. You can read more now that I'm not sat over the text, right? So, release view, we've got data heist missions, we've got hair update in 3.22. We've got the hair update, which is the hair and cloth and all that sort of stuff. Salvage structural missions, so munching, what used to be known as munching, taking the hulk of a ship and turning it into a sellable material. Cargo containers. This feature will allow players to store items and smaller cargo containers in larger ones, which is interesting. So another step on the road to physicalized components, physicalized cargo, and just physicalized inventory. The idea that later on it won't be a magic menu that we go to pull guns out of. We'll actually go to crates and stuff and take this stuff out, and we call that up in the cargo elevator which is something they've shown for the instanced hangars. Yeah, I believe Odin Limited, Odin and is it part of it might be Nyx, I think, but yeah, certainly Odin system. Matthew says, I wonder, because of the PTU coming out after Squadron 42, I wonder if it'll turn into like Pirate Swarm Badge. I don't know, dude. I'm not sure. They have said, and they said all the way back in 2018, that there was going to be more earnable in the game, and we were going to find out about that later. This stuff was Vega system. That's right. So part of it is Vega as well, because Vega is the Vandal battle, right? The coil, I believe, is in the Odin system. So what we saw about the vertical slice, and what we've seen with the scenes with Ben Mendelsohn, the mining scene, we saw the three criminals they bring on board. That's all set within the Odin system. Vega is something very different. Yeah, it's interesting, Limited. So Odin and Nyx, they're going to have to be a fair way to completion, because they're going to have to work within the Star Citizen universe. And you can't have them massively different, because people will notice, and it will be, people will be bothered by that and points it out. Ad infinitum. Sock says, I have a strong feeling the cargo prices aren't going to reflect all this extra work right off the bat. Possibly not. But I don't know if that's going to be a case of extra work for cargo. I don't think it's going to affect the cargo cargo necessarily. I think this means we're going to be able to open containers and take stuff out. And if we buy containers from, say, the cargo centres, we might be able to put them into bigger things if the need arises. I don't think they're going to force us to do that for cargo missions, at least not initially. It does mean, which would be quite cool, that you could go to some of the missions where you've got small bits of cargo scattered around and put them all into one box to make that manageable, rather than having to cart them around individually. So hopefully it'll actually make things easier. But again, watch this space, I guess. Yeah, so we know there's extra stuff coming for Squadron 42. They've said multiple times there will be other things to earn. Of course, you've got to do those things within game. It's not just an achievement on completion. He said you've got to progress down a certain level in order to be able to have them in game. To earn them, and then what will happen is they will unlock for purchase within the PU. They won't necessarily, it's not going to be oh look, it's now in my account sort of thing. So again, they'll be subject to wipes. If they do a full wipe, then you're going to lose that sort of stuff. They might make it immune to that, but then again, possibly not. So yeah, we really don't know what else is going to come with that, but hopefully it opens up some exciting possibilities, right? In terms of other ships that they could do, other things that we could get involved in. Hopefully some stuff that we haven't seen yet. That would be quite exciting. We need a survive in Pyro guide. Limited, you are entirely correct, my friend. We do need a guide in Pyro. For Pyro, and I will set my mind to that as soon as they let me in. Yeah, I'm bitter. Jadoma says, think they talked about shielded cargo containers in the past, like the idea of a shielded cargo container we could use for smuggling. Yeah, they've also talked about shielded cargo compartments. So within the Star Runner, there's the hidden space off to the right for like 3 SCU or whatever. My understanding is that is shielded. The Taurus, the rear compartment, is shielded. So anything you place in those areas will be exempt from scans. The real interesting thing will be, do they implement something like in Firefly, where security forces could actually board your ship, either in space or on landing. That would be interesting. Maybe they only do that at the really kind of authoritarian places like Hurston and so on. Or pirates do it. That would be quite cool. NPC, I think when they do NPCs being able to use boarding tubes and NPC docking in space, you may well see ships becoming disabled, docked with, and then boarded by pirates. Because that would be quite cool. Yeah, badges, protection, detail. Everything for a price, right? But yeah. And then we've got the ships that we were expecting. The ground vehicles, or the vehicles that we were expecting, all within the release bit. Yeah, and then has anyone read the Premium Monthly Report? Because I'm not going to lie, I haven't. What I was going to look through here is they talk about the variant in last month's report, which I haven't checked what that is, but there's one working. The Polaris is still going. The exterior white box is nearly done, and it's the turrets and stuff. So the hull itself is there. We're waiting for the turrets and stuff to catch up. The Reclaimer is having its pass to crush and take bits into the ship. I'm really interested on what that looks like. Hopefully that'll be really cool. Legionnaire was in the tease. The Legionnaire was in the tease. You're entirely correct. And let's have a look at. In fact, we can have a look at that tease, right? So let's have a look. Where are we? Okay, so do this with me. Let's have a look. Okay, let's see what's in.
We aim to deliver everything you see in this video and more in the next 12 months.
Okay, so what do we think they are? Don't know. There's your there's your 3x1s that are coming next patch. So they're in. Jibadomo says, I was messing about in Fleet Viewer today and I think the Zeus might fit in the Polaris. No. I don't think, if they've ruled out smaller ships, I really don't think the Zeus is going to fit in there. I really don't. It's huge and it's long for other stuff. So, yeah. Quad variants for the first one limited? Yeah, possibly. Possibly. That looks like it might be a medical version of the Lynx. We've got what looks like the MPUV, one of the variants. That one looks like it might be the worker variant because it's got the array on the top of the head, which may well be the tractor beams and stuff. Tumbrel hoverbikes because of the light share assets with the Storm, the first one, he says. Yeah, Citizen, I think you might be onto something there, mate. I wouldn't mind betting that something like that as well. It's the Spirit, right? Or something like it. What do we think that one is? Person for scale, so we know it's not the Nautilus. The MPUV skinny. Nice, stunner. That looks like a Crusader or an Anvil starter to me, 23, 26 meters long. Yeah, possibly. Maybe that's one of the ones that we have coming this year. Certainly. So, I can't really see. There's something on the side. This is why I'm leaning forward and getting really uncomfortably close to the camera. There's something kind of, you can just see it between the blur panels. It looks like a thruster away. I realize you can't see that my mouse, but if you see where the preview pane is coming up, it's kind of above where it says precise. Halfway up the screen, there's a white area. And that looks like a thruster away when I've zoomed in, but yeah. The Sulian says limited. Yeah, possibly. Most think that previous one is the Zeus. I think the problem with that is the wings, right? The thruster array doesn't make sense on that one. So let's just scoot back again. AKA the tuning fork. Yep. Most think it's the Zeus. I think the problem with that one is, so the MPUV skinny, thanks Stunner. That's sticking. Yeah, I get it. The bridge concept certainly looks like that. Do we have a starter from RSI? The Aurora, I guess. The Legionnaire. Right, so this is the one with the docking claw. That very much looks like the Legionnaire. Yeah, that's the one you were talking about, wasn't it, Limited? This is going to be an interesting ship. Too short to be the Zeus, says Shinobi. Yeah, I think you might be right. That looks like the Zeus. That looks much more like the Zeus. And when you put it into that scale with that person, there's no way the Polaris is gonna get in there, right? That's just not happening. Looks like the white box, that mystery ship. Yeah, the tally redone. And the Polaris. Definitely the Polaris. They've left the person out for scale here, I think. But unless the argument is that's the person, which would be terrifying, right? That's the person, and I think that is the person. That little speck there, that's just, I realise again, you can't see where my cursor is, but if you look directly below the chin turret, there's a little black speck halfway across the window frame on the floor, and I think that's the person. Which just lets you know how horrifically terrifying that big ship is, right? Yeah, absolutely. That's the person right there. Yeah, that's terrifying. Big bit of kit, that. Big bit of kit. So, I mean, there's a couple things there. We have the two quad bikes that that people aren't sure about, that we've said that might be Grey Cat. That's certainly an option. So that would be one or two left to go. The three X1 or the X1 variants, those are in the patch notes. They're ready to go. You've got some form of Lynx or rover vehicle. Certainly looks like the Lynx. There's the MPUV skinny. And some interesting form of starter ship. Notorious says, I'm both excited and hesitant to hear of the Polaris' white box development. Why hesitant, Notorious? Citizen Ninja says, yeah, I just magnified the image on a 65-inch screen. Probably a person. Still fuzzy, though. Yeah, it seems to be the same. I think that is a person. I genuinely do think that is the person. The updated Retaliator, yeah, I still think they need to do something with its visuals. I just feel like the whole Retaliator concept, I love the internals. The internal make me think of the B-52 bombers, right? That absolutely is right up there. You know, being close proximity to all the ordnance, walking through the ship, all that sort of stuff. That I really like. But the externals, I just feel like it's showing its age as a design. But maybe that's what they're going for. Shinobi says, I foresee lots of insurance fraud when people realise how big it will be to restock the Polaris torps. Yeah, I don't think we're going to get an ordnance restocked. Not like that. I think you'll be able to pay different levels of insurance, and restocking a set armament might be part of it, but I don't think that's going to extend to torps. Certainly not the size 9s, size 10s. I just don't see that as being a thing, for the exact reason. Notorious says hesitant on the Polaris white box, because earlier development means less systems and features, and larger multi-crew ships are in desperate need of them. They simply aren't there at the moment. Possibly, although of course those working on the white box development aren't those that are going to be working on the features. So I think that's kind of a necessity thing. They've got to be working on something, right? And there are other ships coming whose kind of, they can't develop them at the minute because they haven't got the core gameplay in for them. So when they release a ship, it'll do nothing. And CIG have said that they want to stop doing that. So yeah, I think that's more born out of necessity than anything else. But yeah, Sock says the issue with that alien ship being Gattac is that it looks nothing like the Gattac style. Sure, we can only have one ship concept from them, but their logo is all about hard edges. Yeah, you're right. And when I mentioned Gattac, that wasn't the bit that I had in mind. The bit that I had in mind, I'm just going to go find it, which is why my face is suddenly lit up. So IAE 2953. There was a leaked image, and I'm just going to see if I can find it for you. Yeah, this thing. Unfortunately, it's on Reddit again. Let's get you across and let's take a quick look. Okay. So, yes, you have this one up here. You've got the Gattac X07, this thing. Whatever that is. And then you've got the dates on there, November 7th to 30th. It's going to be a long one. Unfortunately, I will not be around for the opening day of IAE. I will be at a talk being given by the famous explorer Runoff Finds. He's coming to Plymouth. So I'm going to be down there with my father. My father's very much into his mountain leading and expeditions and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, we're going to go and listen to Runoff Finds tell us about some of his latest exploits, which is really quite cool. Yeah, just sad no talk of the 600i, says Stakura. Yeah, so a lot of stuff kind of fell on the back burner with a ship development team, and it was interesting to hear them talk so candidly about the team dropping in size. So they had what appeared to be, I think, 18 or 20 people in the team. That dropped to 14 last year, I think, or the year before, and then now they're back up to 28. But that drop off, because the ships are such a big source of revenue, they dropped off the updates. The Bounty Merchantman, and I would imagine the 600i as well. So unfortunately, I think they've taken longer than maybe they would have liked. Certainly longer than we would have liked. But the money must flow, I guess. Suzu Ninja says maybe post-launch, but during development with bugs, torps will need to be restored with claims. Yeah, absolutely. I think everything's going to get released, so you get the use of them. I think, and I know I'm not the only one, it might be that the ability to restock torps might be something that is replicated, just because they are so powerful. and at any rate expect them to be hugely expensive. But yeah. Susan Ninja says, yeah, IA Post has the same colour scheme as the Raelian. Yeah, so the X07 Gattac, is that on the Raelian images? I guess it is. But let's have a quick look. Just take a second. But yeah. So, yeah, it was interesting to hear them, because you don't often get that peek behind the peek beneath the veil of just what's going on in the studio. What was really interesting to hear was them talk about the fact that the studio's up to about 1,300 people now, which is a significant growth over where we were expecting them to be year on year. CIG, as part of being a UK registered company, or pop registered in the UK as well as other places, are required to release their financials. And part of that is how many employees they have working and where they're working. So whether they're developers, whether they're admin or marketing staff, all that sort of stuff, right? HR, all that sort of thing. And we were expecting them to be about 1,100 if you followed it on the curve. So there's been an explosion in staff, probably to help finish Squadron 42. Part of that uplift is going to be the acquisition of Turbulent. Yeah, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, I have no idea why my Reddit account is suspended. But oh well, never mind. I'll manage. Yeah, so let's have a quick look at the Raelian, see if this makes the same thing, or are we talking about something different? Detail page. Because the X07 might not actually be anything to do with this particular platform, right? That would be interesting. Then again, it might be exactly that. Yeah, so that's what we've seen in that image. That's the same thing, right? So yeah, that's where we are. Boink. Looks like a gorilla, like with its arms, how a silverback kind of hunches. But yeah. Last year's IAE is very Drake themed, and it would be strange if they went with an alien manufacturer for one Gattac ship. Yeah, I mean they have obviously gone with the alien manufacturer. So I guess the point you're making there is that you're expecting more to Domo. I guess that's the implication. And my answer is glad that they showed just how small the ship teams are in total too. It might help to quiet those that complain about the amount of resources going into ship development. I admire your optimism. People will always have something to whinge about, but yes, you're right. For those of us that are evidence-based in our whinging, it explains a lot. I'm more than happy to whinge, but I've got to have something to whinge about, and if you show me evidence that actually I'm being a little bit unreasonable, then yeah. Yep, so yes, Citizen Ninjas, yeah, good point. So we've got the Santoki Eye, the Gattac Raelian. Is that enough? Are 2 ships enough? I guess they kind of are. I mean, we saw quite a bit for Drake, right? When they did that, we saw quite an amount of Drake ships. We were able to walk around the Vulture, despite the fact that the Vulture came the following year. So it may well be that we are able to see an alien ship and walk around it, despite the fact that it's coming next year. We also obviously have the stealth design. This thing going back a little way. That thing. Yep. Something that looks like it might be a Mirai, the tuning fork, as someone called it earlier. Yeah, Citizen Ninja called it the tuning fork. So yeah, we've got that as well. So that looks like 3 potentially. And even if this isn't coming this year or gets delayed, the chances are, 3 ships. Yeah, I can see that. Alien themed for 3 ships, possibly even 4, but definitely 3. There's no evidence for a 4th. I'm just being hopeful. Just seeing what confusion I can sow with some crazy rumors in a live stream. Cool. The Santok is manufactured by Apollo, not Gatak. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you never, with the way the alien manufacturers work, I don't think it's possible to have an alien manufacturer that just runs on one unless you want to use MISC as your example of like a hybridized human alien development system. But yeah. Is it just me, or are there less visible turrets on the tally? Very possibly, Shinobi. It might be that they've upsized them and reduced the number. It might just be that they've done something clever and hidden them. But let's have a look. There's Jesus. Very possibly, it might just be that they've not added the turrets to this. Don't know. Don't know at all. Of course, one of the turrets sits back here. There should have been another turret up here, 2 back, port and starboard on the top. I don't know. I'm not going to read into that. The Misk Fury XXXXXL, says Richard. Yeah, possibly. Or that's the tally base with no turrets, says Citizen Ninja. You take your it's common sense someplace else. There's no place for it here. Yeah, $150 tally base. Yeah, I got that one. Courtesy of a friend. But yeah, I'm running around with one of those, so that's cool. But yeah, and that's kind of, I think all we're going to get. The only other bit that raises the question mark is the stuff at the front, right? Is the stuff at the beginning. I'm hoping I've still got you guys, that I'm not about to lose my internet connection. It seems to not want to work anymore. There we go. Right, we're back. So these things, whatever they are, I don't know, they kind of look, they might be grey cat, certainly. They look a little bit more kind of human in construction, if that makes any sense. But yeah. Native Prit says, I don't get how the Perseus and Polaris so similar in price store-wise. Yeah, so the Perseus has got rule of cool pricing. So it's, in terms of versatility, it's nowhere near as versatile as the Polaris. Obviously, its crew complement is nowhere near as high. It can't carry another ship. Doesn't have a brig. Doesn't have a medical bay. Any of those things. But yeah. Those front sides look like the Storm sides. Possibly. So it makes it tumbrel. Yeah, it could be. Okay, Grey Cat tumbrel. They've almost got, like, a little bit of it feels a little bit weird, like Drake, like, Gatak hover bike. Yeah. Sorry, what's that, Jadoma? No bias on what? Sorry, buddy. Yeah. But yes, Perseus is just rule of cool pricing. Yeah, I see you, Napo. I see you there, lurking. Good to see you, bud. So yeah, I think that's where we are. You know, that's a few things. Maybe we'll get the RSI ship this time round. Maybe it will be something that we get to walk around again like the Vulture now that they've started that. Oh, the Perseus. Yeah, Perseus is just really cool. No bias on it at all. Not from myself anyway. I realise that it's when you compare what you can do in the Polaris, the Perseus is a one-trick pony. It's a brawler. It gets out there and it smashes stuff until either they stop moving or it does. It's just tooled up for fight. That's all it is. Whereas the Polaris is something I would suggest is more like a frigate in terms of modern naval terms, not in terms of games classification. But it has the ability to go and just influence. It's got some pretty hefty weaponry on it. You've got a hangar bay where it can change what it carries to change what it's going to do, whether it's going to go for medical missions, whether it's going to go and do whatever, right? A lot of crew, you can go and capture people. It's something you use for force projection. Something you send to a place and you know that it's capable in a lot of situations. That's the Polaris. The Perseus is not that. NATO says it would be cool if the Perseus had even better armor than Polaris. However, they've stated capital armor is graded higher than the Perseus. So capital armor and capital components are bigger, and capital armor generally tends to be better. However, it is hard to kind of see things like the whole E having better armor than the Polaris. Sorry, the Perseus. That'll be weird. So I think there's going to be degrees. And there's also the possibility that certain things are going to be special cases, right? In the same way that you can't change a Perseus's weapons out on the turrets because they are bespoke size 7s. It may be that the armor is just its own special case, right? Citizen Ninja looks like it's got the Carrack's VTOLs. Yep. So yes, it could be something for Anvil. The cockpit to me screams RSI, but I don't know. Side ramp envelopes does look Anvil. Yep, absolutely. Jodomo says, think when engineering comes in, the crew requirement on the Polaris will make the Perseus more practical. Yeah, possible. Exactly that. Perseus is a brawler. That's what it does. It's designed to get into combat. It has one role, which is fleet engagement. It is going and hitting other big ships, mediums, large, and capitals. And I know people go, yeah, size 7's not the capitals. No, but they do state specifically it can be a threat to capital systems because of the size of the weapon that it's got. Cockpit has a profile like the Connies. Yeah, absolutely. We'll see where they go on this. I'm just kind of interested to see what it is. It doesn't look like it's got more than one deck again, but possible starter, like an uprated starter. I don't know. I genuinely don't know. I do feel like the Cutty Black, Freelancer, Connie, Spirit, MSR, I feel like that is becoming very congested. If you were to put ships down by kind of size and capability, there's a lot in that space. And this feels like it's just going to be competing with them as well. But yeah. The thing is, I guess they kind of cover a big area, right? What's the Cutty's SCU at the moment? 48, 50, something like that? And then a Connie Taurus is like up to 174, so it does cover a large cargo range. But nonetheless, it can't help but feel very crowded in that space. There's a lot of ships, and I think they're kind of coming to the end of it. It'll be interesting to see where they go. Once they stop putting stuff into that space, it's like, what else do you then bulk out? Where do you go? And possibly competitors for things like mining. What begins to become obvious is they kind of need some other profession that's going to require a lot of holes. So yeah. What ship is good for pyro, says Limited? Look, I'm going to go off the top of my head because I haven't flown around pyro. Do you hear me, CIG? I haven't flown around pyro. Fix it. Invite me to pyro, goddammit. I would argue that the freelancer size space is the most important, as it's solos but still multi-crew. Yeah, it's that stepping stone from where it's still manageable with one person. Excuse me. Tired. But it's, it would be better with a crew. But it's not so big that you can't manage it without lots of people. So yeah, I see your point. But in terms of ships good for pyro, from what I've seen other people stream it. There's been people in my chat streaming that, all that sort of stuff. Something that A is capable of either defending itself or running away from a fight. Yeah, so one of those two things. It also needs a decent fuel capacity. Pyro is a lot bigger than Stanton. Yeah, it needs to be. It needs some room. And yeah, something that is flyable in, so small enough to be fairly maneuverable in atmo, that isn't dead the minute it tries atmospheric flight and flying close to the ground. Because a lot of the places down there, of course, there are no armistice zones, so trying to get out of there quickly in something like, I don't know, an 890 jump's going to get you killed. So yeah. I've seen a lot of good use being made of the Redeemer. And I'm not a fan of the Redeemer. I feel it's upgunned for what it is. But something like the Redeemer may be a good thing to fly around. MSR, that sort of stuff. I think there is some space, definitely, for a larger refueler, right? So something, yes, you've got the Starfarer, but that ship is plagued by being old, and the inside being like some form of, sadistically designed hellscape. And until they sort that out, not a lot of people are going to want to own that ship. And that leaves us precisely 0 refuelers. So, maybe there's space for a smaller one. There's also the question of when the really big ship's coming out, what is it that is going to be refueling the Polarises and the Idrises and the Javelins? Because they'll suck a Starfarer dry and still need more. So yeah. Had 2 pyro sessions, says Chidomo. Got destroyed in OSR, had more lock on the second session in a Badu Defender. Interesting. Yeah. I think something potentially that looks like it can defend itself makes people think twice about going after it. They demoed the perfect pyro ship, 400i fast, size 2 quantum, lots of shields, touch of class. Nice. Good choice. Yeah. Yes, Limited. Absolutely, 100%. The Gemini was not designed to be actually used. It was designed as an FPS level in a ship. And even that, not great. Lots of dead space in the cargo hold. So, yeah, not ideal. Or certainly not ideal with how limited our mobility is, trying to lean over stuff. Anyone that's done the Reclaimer mission that I put the short out about, the Black Kite, where you try to lean over the railings, you can't shoot through the railings, you can't lean over the railings and shoot through that thing, because it's too high, so you can't shoot down, because our movement model at the moment is just too limited. Shadow Girl says, especially when the X1 comes out, the 400i will be perfect. Hello, welcome. Good to see you. I haven't seen you since just after CitizenCon, I think, so good to see you back. Both sessions were like a sightseeing tour of Jumptown. Got attacked everywhere I went. We were talking about this earlier. People, and if you're wanting to come into into the server. I'll create an event and pop it in because I think I kind of created one for for Daily Noob's channel. So this is definitely mine now. So if you want in, feel free to click. There's lots of us that just hang out in chat. I'm in the super secret squirrel channel at the moment, obviously, because I'm streaming with you guys. But come in and have a chat. Be lovely to see you guys in there. One of the things we were talking about was PvP in Pyro. Now, there's two sides to this, right? There's lots of sides, but the two main sides are people saying the rampant PvP, the fact that people have woken up in their habs, opened the door, and there's been someone stood there with an FS9 shooting them in the face, right? Before they've even got out of their room, versus people saying, "Oh, hang on, Pyro's a piracy system. Like, where's this coming from?" It's a big conversation, this, so buckle up, and feel free to share your thoughts in chat as we go through. It's challenging for a bunch of reasons. Okay, the bottom line that we came to, and what I said in chat at the same time, I see both sides of the argument. Right. On the one hand, I can imagine that if I'm going into the game and I want to test stuff that is not PvP based, you don't have to kill me that many times for me to decide that actually I've got better things to do with my time, especially given how long at the moment it takes to respawn, put your gear away, gear up again, get to another ship, claim it, sort all that stuff out, right? Even if you are very quick at doing all of that, it takes a while. And they're only 8-hour windows. Secondly, we know that PvP works. We know that players can kill each other. We know the ships can kill each other. We've tested all that in Stanton. There is no intrinsic value in PvP in just proving that you can kill other players. Okay. However, flip it. Okay. If they don't put it in now, when do they put it in? Okay, so we get to test Pyro, and they have the Armistice Zones. They let us jump. What happens when they remove the Armistice Zones? Because they're going to have this challenge in Stanton. Right? They're going to have the same thing in Stanton. When they remove it. When they remove it, you're going to have people who are not like us, okay, that aren't in live streams. They've just bought the game, they're going to play it. At the moment it's broken, they'll come back in a couple of years, they'll go in, and then all of a sudden there's, they've removed all the Armistice Zones, and they're getting killed everywhere. For those people, they're not following the development, so they're not looking at what needs to be tested, all that sort of stuff. They're just going to come back and go, this is not the game I wanted. They've changed it too much, I don't like this anymore, I don't want to play, and they'll leave. So when do you put it in? There needs to be a good answer. If we're going to have the Armistice Zones, or limit PvP, or, when do we reinstitute it? First of all, what do we do about it? Secondly, how do you reinstitute it? It'll be an interesting thought exercise to see what people think on that front. But you let me know. Notorious says, I reckon it's just an introductory phase. Pyro won't always be like this at the stations. Limited respawn says, spawn camping shouldn't be possible. But other than that, it's lawless. Jadomo says, I don't mind PvP, but I'm bang average at it when compared to the guys on Arena Commander. But camping people leaving their habs is going to get annoying quickly. Shadow Girl says, there'll need to be some reasonable limits because people in general cannot be expected to be reasonable themselves. Carl says, exactly the same as feelings here, Jadomo, as the people not being able to get out of their habs. Interesting. So, do we have Armistice Zones within the hubs? Is that what we do? At which point, where does the armistice zone end? Because the people outside the armistice zone can have their weapons drawn. So you run outside of the armistice zone, you've got to draw your weapon. They're already pointing theirs at you. I know who wins that fight. So it's an interesting one. Maybe bullets don't do damage, but then for a game going for realism, that doesn't sound very realistic. Because if the armistice zone ends at the lift, then people just wait outside the lift and shoot into it. If it ends the other side of the lift, i.e. when you get into the lift, people will be in the lift when the doors open and will shoot you. People are going to do that anyway. So yeah, I think the question is where do they do that? And in the future, what I think is likely to happen with this stuff is much more of this will be replicated. In terms of even pirate gangs aren't going to want you to go murder hobo. Apart from very specific pirate gangs, which aren't going to be everywhere, at which point you put all the murder hobos in one place. And the problem will kind of sort itself out. Because anywhere else they go, they'll be hunted. Pirate gangs are going to want some sort of limit to how much exposure they get. They're not going to suddenly want to get the reputation of people who have just gone out and butchered 200 people, because they know that's going to bring the UAE Navy, the advocacy and everything else down on their heads, right? So there will be some limit to it. In very much the same way as some of Starfield's missions, when you work for Ryujin Industries, they want you to do missions, and some of them they want you to go loud and make an example. Some of them they want you to do as quiet as possible, and if you don't, you get docked, and so on and so forth. I like Joe Domo's idea of giving us multiple exits, vents, lifts that go down to multiple places. Especially, I mean, that works really well in Ruin Station and in Ruin, in Checkpoint, Checkmate, all that sort of stuff, because there's so many ways that could work. Kyle says, very true. Long term, I think Pyro is probably fine how it is now. People want to play it because it's new, but it's more or less a home for the murder hobos. Yeah, and it might be that the gangs start to change as well. What's really interesting about the Nine Tails is that, according to the lore and according to the videos they've let out, the Nine Tails don't have a problem operating in the public eye. What's interesting about the Nine Tails is that their objectives, their aims, are not always obvious to people. So they might be a little less adverse to people getting popped, because they are, according to CIG, a group of ex-operators. They are people who are weapons trained. They know how to handle themselves. They're not scared of doing audacious acts. So they're going to be a little bit more reliant on force to get the job done. And I don't think that's going to make them welcome everywhere. And I think even within the pirate fraternity, it's not a case of, hey, what we're going to have is we're going to have the lawful gameplay, where you can be friends of the Hurston freedom fighters, but enemies to Hurston, or you can be friends to Hurston, and then you might have a different rep with Mike Tech and all this and all that, and then for pirates, you're just bad guy. Right? There's going to be rivalries amongst the pirates. There's going to be pirate gangs who like you purely because of the type of mission that you do, despite not having known you. Go, hey, we heard you pulled off these data heists. Well, that's the sort of gang that we are. Come join us. So I think once they've added all this extra stuff and the rep and they've really begun to flesh that out, I think we'll see that. Hopefully, now that Squadron 42 is in polishing, we'll see that happen quicker. But I think there's certainly ways to make players not just complete murder hobos. Yeah. Shadow Girl says, if they give 5 exits, a group could just station someone at each exit. I think my idea above has merit, which is the zone should be end by the gang guards. If you want to risk pissing off the guards, then fine. There'll be a risk and reward to such behaviour that way. Yeah, and that works very well with the rep idea, right? if you are someone who's a murder hobo and that gang doesn't like it, they'll kind of try to take you out. Maybe they'll capture your ship so you can't get off the station. So you land it, they'll impound your ship and they won't give it back. And you've got to do a mission to get back, or you've got to go under a flag of truce. I quite like the idea of when you go to pirate gangs, you know, let's say one pirate gang attacks another, you were attacked by someone in another pirate gang, you might be able to go to that gang under like a pirate flag of truce or whatever it is and say, look, here's the offering. I have a grievance against one of your guys. I want it sorted. They did this. We had a truce. He broke it. You know. So if you just go and randomly attack other gangs, you could find that even if you do everything, where you neutralise the comsat, you know, all that sort of stuff, and they can't track you, that person could still take a grievance to that gang and go, this dude did this. Here's the proof. Here's my black box. This is what they did, right? So that would be quite cool. Quite good fun. Leaving it respawns. You won't start there. You'll have to choose to land there and take the risk. Yep. Murder hobos won't play in pyro. They don't want the challenge of PvP. They just want easy kills to the stay in Stanton. The right of parlay. Parlay. Yeah, some form of, you know, they go and you know, there's long held evidence of things like gangs, the mob, all that sort of stuff. Even the cartels, right? They have rules. Otherwise, it's just the Wild West. So they all talk to each other and try to keep some form of truce. And then, you know when there's open bloodshed between the two, because it's heavily reported in the region that they are knocking 10 bells of snot out of each other. But that's when you get sloppy. That's when you make mistakes. When you're in a war against another gang, you can't keep all your bases covered. So that'll be a really interesting thing to see. But yeah, let's go back to the chat in a bit, shall we? So yeah, I think that's a not bad way of doing it. Just skip those ads. I think we've all had enough of ads, right? But yeah, was it something I said? I need to figure out what I said all the way back at however long ago that was, 10:20, because there was a significant drop off. Was it something I said? But yeah, let's just have a look through, make sure that if anyone's joined the Discord, I shall locate you and make sure you have the right permissions and everything else. Just let me know in chat if you have, and I shall give you the right permissions. There's a couple of you. Hello, welcome. There you go. You're more than welcome into the spaces you have permissions for. Like I said, if you see me hanging out in chat, if you see group of people, feel free to drop in. Just make sure you know, kind of read the room, let people say what they're saying when you join first, just to make sure that you're not kind of coming in all guns blazing. But yeah, the stations won't want murder hobos, so they'll protect it. Yeah, the reputation, that all the things that they can track in games now, in terms of what you kill, who you kill, the rep of those people, how often you kill, all that sort of stuff, right? That's existed for years and years and years, and I'm sure they'll make use of something similar to make the rep system not just a how many times do I need to do this quest to get that rep. I have a feeling it's going to be far more integral to the whole game system, not just in terms of access to gear and higher rewards or lower costs. I think it's going to be, you know, if they do it right, it'll be the fundamental underpinning of the game. So yeah, that's that. The other thing is you know, remembering the difference between murder hobos and people who are PvP pirates. Right, murder hobos just kill because they can, which doesn't really go with the whole death of a spaceman thing. Pirates, you know, sometimes they're going to have to kill you to achieve what they want. Sometimes it's about making sure that you are not a risk. So if you don't want to die and you feel like you're in that position, you could always drop stuff and go, hey, my weapons are on the floor, I'm no risk, you know, don't shoot, take what you need but don't shoot. And hopefully they will also do the whole, look, send us the money, or we'll kill you sort of thing, and then everyone gets out, right? And if they're reasonable about that, then, you know, there's less reason to go after them. If you still make a profit, or you know, you do enough to not take a complete loss on it, you're going to be much more inclined to pay them than you are to lose your ship, lose your cargo, and everything else. So yeah, we'll see. I think that's at the minute. Of the people who have been playing in Pyro, how many have been involved in PvP? Just give me a yes if you have been in Pyro and involved in PvP. Give me a no if you've been in Pyro but haven't yet been involved in PvP. I'd be really interested to know kind of like what people's experiences are, because I'm still, CIG, are you listening, waiting on my Pyro invite. Bastards. Other than that, the bit in IAE that makes me think that they might have some sort of mission for us is that bit where they've spray painted over the sign, "Don't buy Alien." So, Jodomo, Shinobi Trip have both been into Pyro, as has my Arch, and been attacked. Richard hasn't been attacked, which is good news. Yeah, Shadow Girl, waiting for an invite. We'll do it together, mate. Let us know when you get one, and we'll go in. Or, failing that, when it actually comes to the PU, we'll go adventuring, and I can go and do all the stupid stabbing people, and you can rescue me when I screw it up. No, spent 4 hours exploring outpost locations as Citizen Ninja. Interesting. Good. That's kind of cool. Endeavour farming module. I struggle to see Goop play being interesting enough. Maybe solo Endeavour farmers. Yeah, Farmville in space. Oh, God. Where I think that's going to come in really useful, right, is fleets. Is if you're out and you're a combat fleet, I can see people needing Endeavours being able to do some sort of being able to basically feed the fleet, right? Because if you stop off at a station or you're buying supplies so much so that you can supply a fleet, people are going to notice. When you start moving all that stuff around, you know, when a station suddenly goes out of stock for food and a notification gets sent out that this station is now low in food, if I was trying to track a fleet, that would be one of the things I would look at. I would look at where stations are selling out of food, where they're selling out of medical supplies, where they're selling out of water, all that stuff, because that's going to tell me where your fleet is. Yeah, or at least where to start looking. So that's kind of cool. I was in a Defender, encountered dozens of other players at the outposts. None fired at me, said Citizen Ninja. Yeah, it's interesting, because they kind of... one of the other things that I wanted to say about the piracy is it's kind of... CIG have to do this experiment at some time. They have said that they don't want armistice zones as a general rule, that they are going to remove them, right? So that they've got to come out at some point. Pyro's a nice test bed for this, because it starts to show CIG how we as players are actually going to take that rule. So, you know, there's no point in implementing a system because you say, well, maybe pad ramming will be really bad, but maybe pad ramming is only a product of the fact that you can't fight around stations. Right? Because if you use guns, why would you kill yourself? Maybe that is why we have pad ramming and such an epidemic of pad ramming when it occurs, right? Is that people have no other way of enacting conflict, that actually maybe that'll go away. So if you don't need the system, why would CIG waste time in doing it? So this is giving them a test bed, I hope, and I hope they are looking at the data. If not, it's a wasted opportunity. But I hope they're looking at the data coming out of their stations to say, okay, this is what happens when there are no armistice zones. How do we need to work station rules, NPC behaviours, reputation, ship impounding, jump gates, all that sort of stuff, because there's so much stuff they can do, right? They can remove access. jump gates could have a security scan on them. You're just not allowed to travel into certain lawler systems. And maybe murder hobos just can't get into the juicy systems apart from small, expensive jump gates that are run by pirates that might not like them. So yeah. I think the death of a spaceman stuff far down the road will also change player behaviors in a big way. Yeah, Shadow Girl, I think, you know, it doesn't stop someone buying an alt account to just go and hurt people and gifting one of their ships to their alt account, and then going and hurting people. Or you go and play Squadron 42 and you get yourself an F8 Lightning and you get that in game. You know, once you've bought it, and then you go and hurt people. Sorry, I got a new phone. My bad. I'll put that away. But yeah, you know, that sort of stuff. Because that's an incredibly powerful fighter to just give to someone's an account for achieving for a mission, right? But yes, you're right. I think for most people who aren't willing to pay money for the privilege of griefing this game, yeah, it's going to change behaviours. Longer reclaim times and having to make the jump point into pyro in the first place, insurance, these things could hopefully reduce pad ramming. Yeah, I genuinely do think that just being able to fight each other will reduce pad ramming. Because no, you don't need to, right? Could hardly hear the phone, says Carl. Good. I completely forgot how in charge had it right next to the mic, so I'm not entirely sure how loud that was. But yes. Yeah, so there's a lot for them to do with the piracy front, is the bottom line, is what I'm trying to get at. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be a quick process. But part of me is glad that I'm not having to suffer the whole PvP-a-thon that's going at the minute, because only Nata and Richard really seem like at the moment that they've kind of escaped that stuff. They won't power ram in the future, so they will tractor beam an asteroid into your parked ship. It's your eternal optimism I admire the most, Shediga. Yeah, you know, there'll be other more interesting ways of doing stuff, I'm sure. But yeah, the good news is with a new camera, with a new phone, comes a new camera, a higher quality camera, and I hope to have that set up next week. For some reason, my previous mount interferes with some other bits of kit, so I've got one of those circle lights with a phone in the middle, but I'll be using a brand new camera phone to get more quality images. I know this one keeps glitching and I keep losing image every now and again, so hopefully that'll be fixed. I'm gonna go sort this. I'll be back in just a moment. Whilst I am gone, I'm just gonna leave you with some very cool Ollers and still footage. Hey, look at me. I remembered to unmute myself. For those who are who are not new to the stream, you'll know that I'm not good at that. Unfortunately, I had muted the music while I was away, so apologies. No glorious lift hold music for you guys, I'm afraid. Yeah. Never mind. But yes, so I think Pyro is producing its own brand of challenges. Pyro is also potentially providing the opportunity to fix those challenges. We'll just have to see which way CIG go with it. Obviously now, in terms of, we'll just talk about this for the last 15 minutes. In terms of what happens now, Squadron 42, I think it's fairly clear it's not going to happen this year, right? Maybe sometime next year. If not, you know, they better sort it in 2025, otherwise people are going to lose there. But we've got teams now that are going to be moving over. So they have said that they are reorganise. You did have the music, good. Hopefully it's not too loud. Let me know if it's beginning to overwhelm stuff. But yeah, with any luck, what we'll see is people. The current teams that work on Squadron 42 have been reorganised into strike teams that will find and target particular areas of the game and will fix it. What we're hoping to have happen in the meantime is for a lot of those staff to come over and work on the PU. If it works like that, we'll know, because what we'll see is a vastly improved rate of things happening in the PU. So we'll see a lot more progress. We'll see what they promised coming across. So things like the new interaction experience, where you can go up to stuff and you can capture it, and you can, you can see what's around rather than having to hold F. The fact that we apparently punch lift buttons now rather than just tap them, but at least we'll be interacting with our environments. We'll see the cloth come across, we'll see the sliding come across, we'll see the improved movements, the interacting with our weapons, all that sort of stuff. In the meantime, can we get access to the first 41 squadrons? No, you missed your chance, so there. But yeah, so we'll see, you know. I don't know why this piece of music is going around again. I think I might have left it on. Well, that's rubbish. Let's do, I don't know. I can't do that one at the top or that one because I get in trouble. Because it's copyrighted, so I'm going to skip those. But yeah, so that's hopefully what we'll see, and we'll see a much increased pace on PU. I also think we're probably going to get about at least 6 months. We'll know because the Evo Kati test flight, despite the fact that we're under an NDA, someone is going to leak. We've had leaks before from Evo Kati on much less anticipated features. We are 100% going to get leaks about Squadron 42. At least the fact that they're working on it. And Evo Kati have it in their hands. So we're going to know at least what you know. I'm guessing 6 months, and this comes back to something Chris said some time ago, which is around the time that they said we were going to do these videos that give us people an insight into Squadron 42, at which point they did one and then stopped. And part of Chris's explanation was that in traditional game development, you only tended to get 6 months heads up. Now, he was talking historical. Obviously, recently, there's been a lot more notice on some games. We've known about Starfield for years. We've known about Cyberpunk for years. We've known about No Man's Sky for years. And if you notice that I'm using games that maybe have let people down, there's a reason for that. But yeah. What is the controversy with sliding anyway? Why is it bad? I think people just don't like it because it's similar to something you can do in Warzone and COD and stuff. But yeah. But maybe Carl can be, will let us into why he's not a fan. You don't have to be a fan, but you know, you can if you wouldn't mind. Yeah. So hopefully we'll see that sort of stuff start to port across. He basically said with that you only get 6 months notice. I think that kind of been a hint maybe that's what he was planning, that we'll get maybe a 6 months heads up. I hope it's soon. But yeah, he says when it goes gold, he's a bit old school. Yes, he is. I mean, obviously, for those that don't know that much about him, he developed the Wing Commander series. He then had a couple of botched game deliveries, which is what a lot of people like to drag up when they talk about Chris, and it's not without merit. You'll find that a lot of the complaints they had about him then when he left sounded very similar to what is happening now. Or what was happening a little while ago, which is things like feature creep. But what's really interesting about what we saw in the CitizenCon stuff was the fact that there's been progress, and you've only got to see how much difference there is between Squadron 42 as it was and Squadron 42 as it is now, to see that they've not been idle. They are working exceptionally hard to get that done, and you know, this feels different to all the other times. Maybe that's the copium. I'm huffing as we go along. In fact, I got flavoured copium for this stream. Cheers. But maybe that's copium I'm huffing, but it does feel different. Hopefully it was just how they demoed it, but it seemed very coddish where you could just slide back to back without getting momentum. Yeah, possibly. I could see how that'd be a bit annoying. Though they indicated verbally that it was just for the demo, so I hope. Yeah. And, you know, the fact that we might not like the way it's implemented in the Squadron 42 does not mean it has to say that way for the PU. And I'm sure if we give feedback, as long as it's constructive feedback about things that we don't like, if there's enough feedback, they'll change it. We didn't like hover mode, they changed it, right? Super sliding isn't that great. I hear you, says Mr. E. I don't hate the ability to quickly dash to cover though. Right now it's not ideal. No, that covering that last kind of 6 feet where you can slide that and maybe put your head down and, you know, come back up already in cover, that's cool. And because one of the changes they were talking about was the whole idea of hitboxes. So at the moment, the AI struggle to engage you if you are behind cover. If you're something that's higher than chest high, that's sitting up here on you, they will struggle. Whereas later on, they won't do that. So yeah, I'd use some anti-hopium medication on Badgers, but it just doesn't work. He's immune. Yes, I am. I got too much hopium in my system to have it overwhelmed by anything. I'd need an equally strong dose anywhere else. I'm sure I'm going to get demonetized for all this joke of, all this talk of overdoses and whatever else, but oh well, never mind. Sliding should only be possible on smooth surfaces. Yeah, you wouldn't be expecting to be sliding on rubble, right? Maybe on sand and stuff like that, you could slide a little bit. On gravel, it actually makes it easier. Trust me, I know from the amount of times I've fallen over. But yeah, you know, from what I've seen and the level of detail that they've put in, nothing is beyond the possible, right? But yeah, so unfortunately I've let the cat out of the bag. I got enough hopium from the trailer to be in a coma for the next year, says Shadow Girl. Yeah, I think a lot of us did. And I won't finish on doing it, although I am considering doing a short. It was of sorts a vindication for Chris. You know, and I think we all see it. The reason we were so excited was we could see the progress. So I'm really hoping that we see that kind of come through soon. That'll be good. But we'll find out. Mystery says, I don't want to see people dashing through the environment because it's faster than running, but again, a dash slide feature sounds useful. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Do we know if the Perseus is the next ship after Polaris, or is it Galaxy? Don't know. Really don't know. We can take a guess, but we don't know. I'm happy with the mobility and would even desire more unrealistic mobility with the inclusion of cybernetic upgrades. I really hope CIG can give us that in a number of years. Yeah, and they've talked about one of the things that was quite interesting but understated from CitizenCon was the idea of armour and how much more it's going to impact us. And I don't know if you noticed, but they did let slip that certain types of armour would restrict us being able to sit in seats. Not all armour. So that was interesting. Not sure if that's limited to armour or flight suits or what, but we'll find out. Yeah. I don't understand why people hate this project so much. They're trying to solve some of the big problems with games. Said Limited. Yeah. What was really interesting to me, and I will go back to this again, is when they talked about the clothing, they were showing Gary Oldman, and Sean Tracy came out and said that, you know, they were showing Gary Oldman, he had his leather jacket on, and they were saying, look, it's got to collide with him, it's got to collide with his knees, it's got to be able to deal with going up steps and folding over the tops of his legs, it's got to collide with the environment, it's got to look good, right? And it's got to, you know, leather obviously has to look different from, you know, like a cotton scarf to, you know, to clothing that's tight fitting, all that sort of stuff. And I looked at that and went, and I just thought, oh my God, like how taxing is that going to be on machines? And Sean said, this is more efficient. It's better and it's more efficient. Which indicates a massive problem that's probably underreported, because until now we haven't had the opposite, which is people need to get games out because there's a publisher holding the purse strings who's going, where's my money, where's my money, where's my money, gimme, 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 right? That's what they're after. So people haven't had the time to make things more efficient. They just get it to the point where it's ready. And as a result, we've always assumed that things looking better means more taxing on our rig. And maybe, actually, when companies are allowed the time to also work on efficiency and performance, as opposed to just getting it to the point where it can go out the door, maybe we'll bust that myth a little. And I'm not suggesting that it will be easier to run really big, good-looking games for less than it's currently, but maybe it means we can make bigger leaps with the same tech by making everything more efficient and not just getting it to a point where we can release it. So, interesting. JC said Polaris, then Galaxy, then Perseus. I don't want to hear that. I don't need that negativity in my life. Gib Perseus. And Boogie says, Badger Son, jelly eels, yay or nay? Absolutely not. Not even once. I will try most foods. Jellied eels is not one of them. You can keep it. Thanks very much for the offer, though. So after every stream, I tend to hang around in Discord a little. If people want to, there is a link in here somewhere. I can pop it in again for those that don't have it. I will add you the role if you want me to. Just send me a message on Discord. Let me know in here, and I will give you the right roles. But you know, I tend to hang around in the bar, in the Discord server for a little while just to chat if anyone's around. But it's been an absolute pleasure to see you all. I hope you all keep well. I will be around next week. Unsure of plans over IAE yet. I will let you know when I do. Take it easy and stay safe. You've been watching Drinkers with Gaming Problems. Thank you very much for stopping by. I'll see you soon.